All right, everyone. Welcome to Talks at Google. I'm here with Chuck Gaidica. Chuck, thanks for being with us.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Great to see you.
Thanks very much.
I'll give a short introduction for those who aren't local Detroit fans already.
All right.
Chuck works at WDIV, Channel 4 in Detroit. He's been there for 30 plus years. Worked on all sorts of programs, Thanksgiving Day Parade, Stanley Cup coverage, NHL Winter Classic, you name it. Pretty much any big event that's happening in the greater Detroit area, Chuck has been involved in through the media. He's also a co-host and backup anchor for Al Roker on the Weekend Today show.
Yeah, I have
Correct.
been. That's kind of past, but yeah, I've been.
In the past. Worked nationally with all sorts of organizations, including National Geographic. Done some expeditions with them,
Yeah, Dr. Bob
understand.
Ballard, the guy who discovered the Titanic. So I got to be with him on 2 expeditions, one to the rainforest in Peru for 10 days and one to the top of Mount Kilauea. Very cool stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were there any dangerous moments in those expeditions?
the smallest thing, an ant called the bullet ant. It looks like a big, chunky black ant. And I saw a scrawny camp dog kind of jump and get out of the way. And I asked my guide, I said, why did that dog just jump out of the way of the ant? He said, oh, it's the law of the jungle. If that ant bites us, it's equivalent to 38 bee stings.
Yikes.
And so I stayed clear of them myself, too. It was good.
Okay. Yeah, the dog's scared of an ant.
Yeah, I just watched where the dog wasn't going, and I went with him, yeah.
Okay. So, Chuck, during all this time you've spent in the industry, are there any periods of those 30 plus years that were your favorite, where you could say, I really miss the 90s, or...
I've been through a lot of the decades,
Tell us about that.
Well, you know, I started in the about 80-ish, so I've been in the business almost 38 years. So I started down south. I grew up in Chicago, never worked there, almost went there, and wound up starting in a small market. You know, in television, what we used to call broadcasting, now everything is media, but in the day, you always started in a small market and you worked your way up. And I started out to be a dentist, a doctor.
Oh, wow. Got
to Loyola University. Loved the idea, but I was kind of programmed as a kid I should be a doctor. Nothing against doctors, by the way, but I dropped out in the first half of my first semester.
Wow.
So I kid my children that I'm able to operate on them with a spork. You know, that's about all I can do.
And you have a child that's becoming a doctor now. Correct?
Well, a different kind of doctor. Right here in Ann Arbor, he's becoming, he'll have a doctorate in neuroscience, researcher. So he's working on Parkinson's, which is just the coolest thing. I mean, he is on fire to find a cure for Parkinson's. So it's a lot of fun. So I started there, kind of moved very quickly early on, 9 months of my first job. I met my wife there, got fired on purpose. Called her up and said, meet me at my townhouse. She did. I had nothing. I had a bicycle, and I don't remember if I had the love seat or the sofa. My buddy and I moved together from college, and so we were roommates. So I got the sofa, the bicycle, and I think I had a table. And I got down on one knee, and I said, would you marry me? I have nothing. I didn't even have a ring. It was basically, it was an IOU. Okay. And we'll be married 36 years next month.
Wow.
7-Eleven. I remember that now because we get free Slurpees.
So, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
on the Slurpee or the wedding?
Both.
And so then I moved really quick, and I got to Detroit. I don't know if anybody here will remember back in the day there was a weather guy here named Sonny Elliott, and he was probably when I got here about 65-ish, and I was this young whippersnapper from down south. I got the job. I didn't know him. And so that's how I got to Detroit. Channel 2 was CBS back in the day. Worked there for 5 years. Went to work for the network. Substituted for 2 years in New York on the CBS Morning News, all the while still living here. And then Channel 4 heard that I was thinking of jumping to Chicago. They said, no, you're not. And I went to work at Channel 4. And that was almost to the month. Next month, August, it'll be 30 years at Channel 4.
Wow, congratulations.
So crazy. I mean, it just went as fast as the first couple 3, you know.
Are there others at Channel 4 that have been there 30 years?
No, I think, and I'm just part-time now because I left and I came back. It's kind of like the mafia. You're never allowed to leave. So, no, I think I may have tenure. I think I'm the guy. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Great. What brought you into the industry in the first place? I mean, being a weatherman would be fun, I imagine, for anybody.
So I drop out of school. I go to work at Walgreens drugstore trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, because now I'm this guy with a lot of great grades and a free ride to Loyola, but I've just told my parents, sorry, I don't want to be a doctor. It didn't go over too well. And so I went to work at Walgreens. I'm trying to figure out, how do I take my interest in science and math, which I loved and I was strong at, and how do I take my interest in journalism and put them together? So I came up with meteorology. And I transferred to Southern Illinois University, where they had a program, not a major in meteorology. Left there with this buddy of mine, and we went to interview for a job in Evansville, Indiana. And I was qualified to either be a TV news reporter or I could do the weather. I had enough training. And so he went in for the interview first. There were 2 job openings, a TV reporter and a TV weatherman, 5 days a week. And so he went in first, and he comes out with a big thumbs up, like, I got this one. And so they call me in, sit me down. In those days, we had tapes, and they put my tape in the machine. They watched my tape of me doing reporting and weather, and they said, you know, we like your tape. We're going to offer you either job. And I already knew I wanted the weather job because I could get trained by the National Weather Service. So I said, well, how much do they pay? The general manager said, well, the reporter job is $10,000 a year, and the weather guy is $15,000 a year. I said, I'm your new weather guy.
Easy decision, yeah.
So that's kind of the way it started. And then I did get trained by the Weather Service, so I was able to forecast and work with the computer models. And so I've got degrees that are different. I've got a master's now. So I have varied interests, but weather was the interest at the beginning. Still is, every day, even though I don't do it every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So weather is your primary interest. You've also been a game show host for the Michigan Lottery show.
That was kind of by accident. You know, I auditioned 3 times for the Michigan Lottery game show. It was seen in 12 markets, or 9 markets in the state. And I thought, oh, this isn't going to work. I mean, what are the odds? And I had been called by a group out of California, Barry Enright Productions, to audition for The Joker's Wild and for another game show. And I didn't want to move to California. It didn't make sense for my family's life. So I auditioned 2 or 3 of these auditions, and by that time I was getting a little upset. I thought, hey, if you want me, you want me, and if you don't, it's okay. I got stuff to do. And they said, sure, how would you like to do it? We'll tape every Friday. And I thought it would be, like a 1-year flash in the pan. It was 12 years.
Wow.
So worked out fine, And
I
got to give people $50,000 a week and a car or a cruise, and I thought, what a
people
country!
Love you.
What a country,
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Tell us a little bit more about your career and how you've adapted and changed your personal brand over the past 38 years.
Well, in recent time, we've used that phrase personal brand. I don't know that I ever thought of it that way, but it's been described to me as a brand, So for me, I started to get a little knock on the door in my 40s. I think it happens to some people maybe earlier in their 30s, but in my 40s. And the knock on the door was not midlife crisis, like I needed a Corvette, or something. It was, why am I here? What am I doing? Is this all there is? Those kinds of questions. So I got a hold of a book called Halftime, Moving Your Life from Success to Significance. And I thought, man, that resonates with me. How can I take my life? I thought I was always a good guy, I like to do good for people, but I thought, yeah, that really resonates. So I started really thinking about this idea. What am I going to do? So as I was looking at that, I thought, well, now I may have an issue in terms of a personal brand or a story. Like, what is this authentic? And it was, and it is. And so for me, that was the beginning of this journey of trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do when I grow up? And I think we go through that in various stages. I remember in my late 30s to early 40s asking questions that I asked myself when I was 10. I grew up in the inner city of Chicago, sitting on a back porch, concrete backyard, a little bit of grass, lawn, looking up at the stars, wondering one night, why am I here? Is there a God? What am I supposed to do when I grow up? Who will I marry? All the big questions. And then you fast forward into my 40s and I'm asking, why am I here? Is there a God? What am I supposed to do when I grow up? I'm married and it's all working out, so I didn't have to ask that one. But that whole idea of what am I going to do when I grow up was a really interesting question. I was kind of flying at the top of my game in broadcasting, but yet I felt like there was going to be something more. And more didn't mean better. More didn't mean more money. More to me was, what can I do? I guess success to significance resonates, but for me that was the question. What can I do to help people? And so that's when life started to shift for me. It's very interesting.
And what steps did you take next? I understand you went to Jerusalem and other parts of the world to discover yourself and learn more about your faith.
I went back for a master's in ministry and leadership. I'm a student of leadership, so I like that idea of wondering, how do you walk alongside people? How do you motivate them? I mean, I'm in your building and I'm watching, how do you keep this group moving and what's going on? And it's not by accident that I got a free latte. I mean, it's like, I'm motivated now,
A good one, too.
Yeah, it's a good one. So that began, part of my journey was to go live in Israel and Jordan for a month. So I studied on the ground, covered archaeology and history of the Bible. So that was a reinforcing thing for me. And then I was invited, I actually put on a conference. 900 baby boomers showed up. And I had a speaker come in from the Halftime Institute. The same man who wrote the book took his wealth and decided he was going to target it toward doing good by inspiring what he would describe, I guess, as high-capacity men and women who maybe are at that stage like I was. What am I going to do now? And then coach them, come alongside and send them out into the world. Go do good. So I went to this intensive 3-day thing out of Pepperdine University in Malibu. I don't know how kids go to school in Malibu.
It's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, you walk out and there's the ocean. I'm thinking I would slack off all the time.
That's your motivation to stay there, stay in school.
Right, I'm a 6th-year freshman. So I go out to Malibu and I'm in this 3-day intensive with coaches who had walked away from their jobs. Multi-billion-dollar operations is what they led. And there are only 10 of us, and they're coaching me on, what do you want to do when you grow up? What is that going to look like? What is success to significance? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? So it was a fascinating part of the journey. So I come back now, and I've got a certificate in second-half significance. The irony, of course, is I'm still trying to figure out my own. So it's still part of the journey, and I think the other part of this that maybe would resonate was when I started to go through these feelings, I had to make sure that my spouse was on track. And at the beginning, she did not understand these feelings I had.
Did she think you were having a midlife crisis?
Maybe
my wife would say that.
Yeah, I think at the beginning she did, and then I coined a phrase that really helped me. It was lethargic for me, and it helped me. I would tell her, and I would tell my kids if they asked, and anybody that asked, I'm having the most fun being confused I've ever had in my life. Now, part of that was because I could be confused at that stage in my life, and I still had a great job, but I knew I was looking for what's next. And so that unfolded over the course of about a decade. And I wound up getting my master's. By the time I was done, I got my master's at age 54. So I'm on track to get a PhD when I'm 90. So
all right, hey, you can do it.
It's never too late.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. What are some of the steps we can take to find significance or move from success to significance? Anything that we could maybe leave today and think about doing ourselves?
I think that there are people that have different views. Steve Harvey just wrote a book called Jump. And his premise is that sometimes we think about this idea of doing things. It may not even be goodness, right? It may just be our job. And we think about it, we pray about it, we do about it, and then we just get paralyzed. We don't move. So one of the premises, anyway, of his book is jump. Just take a chance and lean into your strengths. And there are some that would say you should analyze your strengths. I think that's a good idea. Gallup Strengths Finder, $15, you can get your top 5 strengths. And I've been told by world-class coaches that probably in your lifetime, maybe your 6th strength will cycle in, but basically your top 5 are your top 5 strengths for your lifetime. Well, that's kind of good to know what I'm good at, but if you look at the YouTube videos or Vimeo, wherever they are, it will also show you red flags. Be careful. So in my case, my top strength is I'm a learner. I love to learn stuff. But I don't know if you noticed when I walked in, I wanted to look at the camera, like who makes it, what brand is it? That's a downside for me. So I'm a learner, but like I want to look at the bottom of my latte cup. Did that come from China? Who makes that paper?
Distracted or pulled in?
Yeah. So I mean, it's good to know that though, because then I know that I shouldn't be looking at bright shiny objects because they can distract me.
I imagine that makes your career a good fit for you, hosting a morning talk show.
Being a learner?
Being a learner, because the variety of people that come in is enormous.
Right. Well, we've got live guests, we've got live animals, we've got, we've got all kinds of stuff. So it's from, people who are important to people who think they're important. And I've met both. And, so it's fun because there is variety. I don't know that that's, in my case, I keep retiring. So I'm going to keep retiring until I get it right. And so my goal now is really to focus my energy and my being on doing good. And so for me, there's a biblical charge to that, but there's also an idea that I really want to do good. And what's interesting was when you look at research from Pew and Barna and other sources, millennials and baby boomers, which is what I am, I'm a boomer, show up similarly. We want to go do, we want to change the world, we don't mind travel. So I think that there are some differences, but I'm encouraged that while the baby boomers, there are certain statistics associated with us. The millennials have just passed us in terms of sheer numbers. But there's still 73 million boomers. And locked up between now and the year 2030, $55 trillion of saved and inherited wealth in the hands of boomers. So the difference is we may all want to go out today and go build a Habitat for Humanity house. It's just the boomers will climb the same ladder and want to put up the shingles, but we'll say, hey, you know what, this is so cool, let me write a check for $1,000. I'll pay for the shingles. Millennials haven't gotten there yet, but we actually show up, interestingly enough, with similar loves and desires about what we want to do to change the world. It's really cool.
That's great. Do you feel like in your current role as in program television, you have opportunity to serve as much as you'd like?
Probably not. Not just because it's, I think I can give a platform to serving. Maybe I can be an encourager or more, how shall I put it, a catalyst. I don't think I'm not some guru. But I do like to do. I mean, I like to be on the ground doing it. I don't like to just be talking about it. So for me, I love adventure. It's one of the reasons I became a private pilot. I get to a lot of things because of the media I've gotten to do over the course of my career. So I love to be hands-on and go do. So I may have to shift that a little bit in time to allow me to go do. And doing, especially doing good, doesn't always pay well. So, but for me, that's okay. I think there's so many things going on in the world that I'd like to be part of and go do.
That's great. Yeah, keep inspiring us. And
I hope.
Yeah, good. I understand being in program television that your success of your career depends highly on your ratings.
Yeah.
How have you been able to hold people's attention as a television broadcaster?
Well, that's changing right before our very eyes. Because what is media? We could do it on the iPhone right now. So I think broadcast television, traditional radio and television, we all know what's going on. Let's say I've got 5 kids under the age of 35. Only one of them owns or pays for cable. Only one. So I think the cat's out of the bag in terms of what's happening in the world, in terms of on-demand, streaming, and all the rest of it. So you guys know that better than anybody in this building. Where are people going? How are they getting their information? My biggest concern, and it's not just because of the recent discussion of fake news, my biggest concern is where is news going to come from? So I don't need a gatekeeper to tell me it's a left-leaning source or a right-leaning source. I need a gatekeeper to sort of vet to make sure at least there are 3 sources, that it's truth. And I think we're at the point now where Google is there, lots of others will be there, that algorithms are going to tell me that there's something happening. And I think for some news, that's okay. I mean, if I were flying an airplane and I had to look for an emergency landing and I could land in your parking lot, and all of us grabbed our phone and we start taking pictures, this is nuts. Look at the weather guy just stepped out of an airplane. So if that gets posted and somebody can assign high value that 200 of us just said an airplane landed in the Google parking lot, I don't know that I need a reporter. But I think for some things, I'd like to have a voice. And I think that's what media now is struggling with. Whose voice is it? Where is it coming from? And maybe in the future, more importantly, where is it going to come from if everything is autonomous? How do I trust it? I think that's a big question for all of us.
Right. What are your colleagues doing in the industry if viewership is going down? How are they adapting? Are people moving to online news sources, or how are they staying in the industry? Well,
traditional media is looking at, well, for instance, WDIV has the strongest web presence in the state with clickondetroit.com. I think they're all looking at what does new media mean? How do we reach out through social media? What is the value of Google and Facebook and Instagram? What's the value? So it's, everything has a little different play, and I think the trouble traditional media is having is trying to figure out how to monetize it. So you can do it. We can do all kinds of cool stuff. And we can buy, or maybe for free, get programs or platforms that can do cool stuff. But you can, as you know, if you're not being productive, if all day long all you're doing is posting on Facebook, I'm not sure that all those people are going to come translate into viewers. So I think that's what they're struggling with, is part of what they're struggling with. So there's maybe a declining scale in terms of financial resources that are coming in to stations, and not just traditional TV, it's really anybody. The company that I work for was owned by the Washington Post / Newsweek magazine. Post, Newsweek, historic company. You know, they're the guys that investigated the Nixon White House. This is the Washington Post, not the one we know today, Newsweek magazine. Eventually, they sold Newsweek magazine for $1 for really the name. And the company that bought it had to inherit about $300 million, I think is what the number was, of debt. And several years later, they sold the Washington Post mainly for its name. And so now we're divested of anything that's traditional print, because who in here is reading a magazine or a newspaper? It's not typical. So I've watched in my career with my very eyes things not just diminish in terms of their importance and their impact, but just, I mean, vanish. In a practical sense, you know. Can you give us a little bit of inside experience of what it's like working for the television station? Are there any particular stories that stand out to you as, wow, the normal person in the world wouldn't experience this, or waking up at 2 a.m. to go get ready for a program? Tell us a little bit what that's like. Traditional broadcasting, well, really any broadcasting, although today you didn't require me to wear, you know, makeup and pantyhose, but that's the, so, you know, for guys, that's the hardest part. Is putting on makeup. Yeah. The other part of this that's really interesting is the behind-the-scenes stuff. The people who come in, who not so much are requiring special colored jelly beans and their private water, but you do have some of those demands of guests that come in. The most fun I've ever had is probably kids and animals. I don't think that ever changes. Look, Steve Harvey has a whole new show now, you know, working with kids. And I was out live once at the airport doing the weather live, and I really kind of memorized what I'm going to do. I did the forecast, so I ad-lib everything. I just talk for 3 minutes, and they tell me shut up, and I'm done. And so I had notes. I put them on top of a little monitor, and I'm working with pygmy goats. It's just part of the deal. And so here are these little poodle-sized animals. And my paper blew off the top. You couldn't see it on camera. I was in full screen graphics, but the paper blew off, settled down, and all these goats came running over and ate my piece of paper like they were piranhas. And I started laughing, and it was the only time in my career where I just couldn't finish what I was doing. I said, back to you, and I just kept laughing. I couldn't stop. So there was that. I've never had major bloopers, like a set hasn't fallen down, or, you know, but access is probably the most fun thing. So I never would have gone on expeditions to the rainforest or, you know, in Peru or top of Mount Kilauea if I weren't in the media. It wasn't because it was me. It was because I happened to be following a kid from Detroit. Never in a million years could I have flown through a hurricane with the hurricane hunters because I was in TV news. Never in a million years could I have flown with the Blue Angels.
You were in the cockpit with
in the cockpit with the guy, and he came out. Who's seen Top Gun? Have you seen? Oh, so I'm with a Top Gun pilot. This kid he's 26 years old. He walks out, and he's about ready to retire from being a Top Gun pilot. He walks out, everybody snaps to attention, and he's got an assistant. And they put me in the seat behind him, and the assistant kid reaches in and pulls the lever down and locks it into place, a big red lever. I said, what are you doing? He said, I've just armed your chair. I said, with what? He said, with the equivalent of 2 sticks of dynamite. So whatever you do, don't push that red button. I said, trust me, I'm not touching any red button. But if you've seen the movie, you know, when
eject.
Yeah, the ejection, the canopy didn't come off. So I'm with this Blue Angels pilot, Willow Run Airport, Ypsilanti, and he got permission to fly along the top of the ground, maybe 50 feet off the ground. He got to the edge of the runway, and he said, when I say pull, pull, on the second pull, I'm going vertical, I'm going to hit the afterburner. We were from ground zero to 22,000 feet in 20 seconds.
Wow.
It was awesome. It was, but you know, I go to Cedar Point. I've done Cedar Point and Kings Island in Ohio in the same week because I like roller coasters. So for me, it was a blast. And then he did an inverted barrel loop, and I never knew that you could see passing out. I always thought when people pass out, they just pass out. So I see it coming because we're upside down doing about 2.5 Gs.
And you passed out?
No, almost. The good news is I didn't puke because it would have been the assistant who had to clean it up. No, there were little lipstick cameras in the cockpit. But that kind of cool stuff for me, because I was in the media, being able to go on expeditions with world-class researchers. I mean, I'm sitting in the middle of the Amazon in Peru with Dr. Bob Ballard, the guy who discovered the Titanic, and I'm shooting the breeze with this guy who's like, you know, he's on Nat Geo. I mean, it's just, for me, it's been like being a kid in a candy store. That's probably some of the most fun, was just being able to have access to, I'm standing in the White House. And when I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, I used to draw a cartoon character. If I did the weather, I slid open a secret little door, and there was a piece of paper there, and I draw a cartoon named Gusty. You know, they wanted to kill Gusty, and I said, I'm not going to kill Gusty because everybody will hate me, so I'll do Gusty. So I can draw a stick figure with the best of them, so I do the stick figure. Now fast forward, I'm in the White House with President Bill Clinton, and I'm standing in a receiving line, and the guy in the dressed blues comes up and he whispers in my ear, you've got 15 seconds with the president, make it count. And I'm thinking, what do you say? I don't know. What do you do? I don't know.
Were you nervous?
I was. So I walk up, and he was in Little Rock when I was in Little Rock. And I walked up, I said, Mr. President, I'm one of the weather people who used to draw Gusty. And he looked at me and went, oh, I remember you. And I'm thinking, you do not. You do not.
You did? Oh, wow.
You know, but people said he had a sharp memory, but I think he was just, you know, being nice.
Maybe he did.
Yeah, maybe he did, yeah.
Yeah, and you became known for these cuddle alerts when the cold winter came in, and actually wrote a book about cuddle bears.
Well, when you hug somebody or cuddle with somebody, you release oxytocin. So it's called the cuddle hormone. I didn't name it, you know. And so I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, and in Little Rock, that was my stop before Detroit. It was boring. Winters were boring. There was never any snow. If there was, they kicked the kids out of school when there was like a ½ inch of snow. And I thought, what am I going to do to make the winter fun? I grew up in Chicago. We get blizzards, 2 feet of snow, drifts up the side of the house, you know. So I thought, I'm going to come up with a fun way of describing cold. So I came up with Cuddle Alert. I eventually had it service marked. And so then I started issuing every night when I moved to Detroit a Cuddle Alert. When it got colder than average, I would say you can cuddle with somebody you know or don't know. You know, it's all platonic. And it kind of stuck. And so then, moving forward, I wrote a book, children's book, and I wrote another book on cuddling, more the science of it, and kind of tongue-in-cheek science. And then, and out of that grew a little teddy bear. And while my wife urged me to make this a nonprofit, I probably should have, I didn't, because I never made any money. I wound up losing money on it. But I took all the profits from the books and I put them into teddy bears. And we gave away about 8,000 teddy bears to first responders. Like if an ambulance pulled up and saw a kid in a car accident, they could reach in the cab and hand them a bear. And so that was pretty cool to be able to do that. So that's been the fun part of trying to do good, is find ways to media, old school, writing a book. How do I put it all together and do something? And all of a sudden I wake up and there are 8,000 teddy bears in the hands of kids. I know.
That's wonderful.
Awesome.
You may have also played matchmaker with those cuddle alerts too.
I've been told. I actually have had people walk up and say, they point at their kids and say, this kid is a product of a cuddle alert.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm not paying for college. I'm really happy, but you know.
So you have a big responsibility. Being
well, I
on
didn't
air,
realize I did, you know.
So,
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.